Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. This is JR, founder and CEO of Social Market.
And my name's Leon Hitchens. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Social Market. Excited for another week, JR?
Yeah,
Not as much news, like crypto related. It felt very summer vibes, lack of just news. Everyone who was tweeting was really just tweeting about kind of like small little things happening and, Genius Act getting pushed along,
yeah,
Clarity Act kind of getting pushed along, but nothing like groundbreaking in the crypto world. A lot of other news from the Supreme Court yesterday, but nothing
yeah,
crypto.
yeah. And I don't even know if it's relevant for us to talk about Supreme Court. We all have our opinions. We all have thoughts about it, but we want to give you the news on the state of the market, state of crypto, anything of that sort, and even with AI, which kind of a hint, we're going to talk about AI today as well. With that said, in the last week, Nasdaq and S&P 500 closed with new all-time highs, and we'll talk more about it here in a moment. Social Market, as you can see, if you guys saw last week's episode, there are a lot of updates, and we're going to continue to roll out more updates. The release, hopefully it'll come out. We will leave a link to it below in the description for you guys to access Social Market in real time from your end. The S&P 500 right now is at 6,169. Nasdaq at 22,518. These are the indexes. These are not the ETFs. And those are apparently new all-time highs. Also, in Social Market, you can see the value of gold, which right now it's sitting at $3,274. And even including the Coinbase, the Coin 50 index for the top 50 cryptos in crypto market. It's right almost at $400 USD. Right now, the altcoin season, it's more on Bitcoin side by 19%. The fear and greed and bull market are almost in tandem, being right around 60% overall. So it's very bullish right now. People are starting to feel the greed. And it's kind of funny that we're seeing this because it was just last week when the markets were breaking. There was a lot of fear of potential war, but now it's recovering. And Bitcoin, it's sitting at about $107,347. So
What did
here
it peak at? I think it peaked this week, right? I'm kind of curious. Yeah, I think it was I don't know if it was an all-time high, but we'll talk about the markets here and the geopolitical tensions that have been happening. But everything's there. Even Trump, this week said that Bitcoin's letting pressure off of the U.S. dollar. It's a great thing for America, and that we're going to embrace it more and more. I think Texas passed their strategic reserve. A lot of stuff happening for Bitcoin, but it's still staying about 110. Really like 108.
very close to it for sure. So on to our first story. This is from Morning Brew. S&P and Nasdaq open at record highs. This was on Friday, June 27th. And you can see kind of like the memes. Everyone is kind of bullish on the comments for this thread. And if we look at the price more here for Nasdaq, on Friday it opened at above 20,000. So that's pretty big. I would not have expected the market to be opening at this record time. Well, that's for the Nasdaq, and then for the S&P, it was, again, this is the performance for the last 5 days. It's all just going up, which, again, direct opposite of what we saw last week. Everything was breaking, crashing, and everything. Those are the two markets. I think a lot of what's helping be this way is because Trump did close a deal with China. This is a video that Nick Sorter, I'm not sure who Nick Sorter is, but breaking. President Trump just announced the U.S. has signed a trade deal with China. This is a huge news. The legacy media has been telling us this was impossible, and India is next, Trump says. India being next would be insane. It would be really good for everyone if that actually happens. I'm going to play the video now.
A few months ago, the press was saying, do you really have anybody of any interest? Well, we just signed with China yesterday, right? We signed with China. We have everybody. We're not going to make deals with everybody. Some we're just going to send them a letter, say, thank you very much. You're going to pay 25, 35, 45%. That's the easy way to do it. And my people don't want to do it that way. They want to do some of it, but they want to make more deals than I would do. But we're having some great deals. We have one coming up, maybe with India, very big one, where we're going to open up India. In the China deal, we're starting to open up China, things that never really could have happened.
So yeah, that was Trump on the trade deal. Honestly, I'm kind of bullish if it actually does come through about India. And you and I were talking about kind of like how monopolistic the system is in India. If you have companies in the US or any other part of the world, it seems, working with talent or offshore talent from India, India currently has a monopoly on its payment systems, for lack of a better word. Do you think this is going to cause any impact on that if there's an open
I
trade
don't think
deal?
it really impacts that because this is just like physical trade, right? Like,
Seems like it.
I don't think it's going to change anything. It's just going to, open up the market to have more physical trade from India. I'm not sure what sort of resources or materials or products that we get from India per se. I don't. I don't think I really see too many things say like made in India. Rarely. More often, it's made in China, Vietnam, Philippines sometimes, Malaysia. But I don't think it's going to really change that because it's like Canada, like the digital service tax that's been kind of progressing along.
Oh, yeah.
You need something within like a digital remittance or a digital service world, not just a tariff to change the impact of what's happening there.
It makes sense. A lot of people there are smart. I mean, India is a very big and very diverse country, if we're being honest. But more times than not, a lot of their brightest minds come to the US or other parts of the world to study. The current CEO of Google is from India. I'm not sure what they do beyond software, but physical trading, maybe they can do some silks, maybe some manufactured work like that. That could be huge. I think it would lower the cost of goods and services that come from India. Maybe it would be a win for the economy. Maybe it'll be a win for average consumers buying the same things that can be bought from India at a
Looks
cheaper
a
rate.
little bit like precious metals, petroleum gems, pharmaceuticals, vehicle parts, machinery, organic chemicals, textiles, agricultural, and then obviously like crude oil, gold. But it looks machinery is a lot of it. It's like electrical machinery, nuclear reactors, industrial equipment, components for electronics. So it's a lot of parts to what we need, but I don't really understand the Indian economy. It's one of the largest ones, but also like we don't import cars from there. Like they're not a big maker of cars yet for us. The most sold vehicles in America are Japanese vehicles,
Toyota,
Honda
that's right.
and
Honda.
Toyota. Like, and even them, they have large investments in the United States for plants and everything, but most of it's made in Japan and then shipped over here. I know like Ford, Chrysler, Jeep, the Stellantis companies use Mexico and Canada for different parts of the manufacturing process and then still use Detroit as like a kind of a final completion zone. Because if you want the car labeled made in America, you have to have so much of it physically assembled in America. So we'll see what this India part does for everything. But India is a really large market. They've got some totalitarian like tendencies in their government, and then they have a lot of fraud in their financial systems.
They do.
That's been the hardest part of paying anybody in India is always the financial fraud because they have such strict laws. Like, for example, I don't think Namecheap, like for even GoDaddy for the domain registrars, can keep credit cards on file because of fraud
Really?
and issues that they've had in the past.
Wow.
President there, Drupadi Murmu, 15th president of India is July 22, but I believe the previous one helped kind of clean up the financial system a little bit, but there's just still a lot of fraud there.
I didn't know they had a new president, so that's kind of cool. But it makes sense. I'm kind of excited to see what happens, if I'm being honest. Like, I know India, it's kind of ignored in the geopolitics in the world. Well, it's not ignored in the sense that people don't care about it, but I guess common folks don't think about India as much as they think about China, Japan, Europe, the EU. They mostly just think about those countries over India. But India is a superpower too. They have a large influence in the economy.
I'm pretty sure they're part of BRICS, right? Their alignment is towards China. It's not so much towards America. So, like, this is a huge milestone for India to kind of align with America, possibly, bridge some ties there and make him a little bit more friendly to American and Western politics versus aligning them with Russia and China. So this could be a big thing in terms of just like pushing them towards, more of a democracy versus these totalitarian style regimes like Russia or even China.
I agree. I think BRICS is the biggest, I wouldn't say enemy, to the US dollar, because the US dollar right now has the biggest control in the world, which is good for us if you're living in America. Like, good for you, because our dollars go a long way internationally. But if BRICS becomes, the new kind of global reserve currency, then the US dollar is just going to be useless because inflation is high. And the only thing that's keeping us relevant is not only our military, but the fact that it's a global currency. like it's a global reserve currency. So BRICS is gonna try to overthrow the dollar. So maybe its involvement with China, with India, I mean, it could help prevent that. So I'm honestly kind of excited to see how things unfold, and we'll keep you guys updated with that. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is China. So this is from Cointelegraph. It said, breaking, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says trade deal with China could be finalized by Labor Day. There's this guy who commented, hey Grok, what's the news? What's this new trade deal about? And Grok said, the U.S.-China trade deal announced on June 27, 2025 aims to ease tensions by suspending most tariffs for 90 days and allowing rare earth exports. It includes China reviewing export controls and the US lifting some restrictions. Opponents say it's stabilizing trade. Critiques argue it lacks substance, merely undoing past damage without addressing the trade deficit or long-term issue. China's seen as a gaining leverage, while US critiques call it a weak deal. Its success hinges on implementation with uncertainty lingering. Which, yeah, it makes sense. Like, Trump, I think, is really good at overstating what's actually happening. I get it. You know, he's the president, he's trying to look good, but the devil's in the details. And as of right now, it looks like we could still see some tariffs for Chinese goods. Like if you're buying from Shein or even from Amazon, you could get a tax from that, which I think people have been paying taxes to the US exports like USPS or FedEx, whoever, they pay the tariff to, because after Amazon tried to do the whole, hey, you know, this is how much you would be paying for this good on the website. Like when you check out, you can see the tariff tax, but they removed it. So you're still paying for the tariff, but just not through the portal where you bought the good. You're paying into the one shipping it seems. So at least we're not going to see that with rare earth metals or like jewelry, I guess. So
I don't know, I guess it just depends on what this is. This is an interesting one because most economists don't think tariffs work, but Trump is using it as a geopolitical tool, and it's really working for him.
You know, I had my doubts in the beginning, but seeing how things are going right now, I think it's kind of a smart move. But, I mean, when things don't go his way, he quickly pulls it back. So I don't know how much of a leverage he can go on with it for long. This is from Polymarket. The U.S.-China tariff agreement before 90-day deadline seems to be at an all-time yes. I think just in the last few hours, it was at 94% yes. People are saying, yes, it's going to happen. And, you know, a lot of no's are just maybe at 20 cents per share. So this was disputed twice. On May 12, 2025, that gives you a little bit of context here on the trade deal, but it prematurely closed, and then someone disputed it, which in Polymarket, if there's enough evidence, they can dispute an outcome. Which it looks like the outcome was disputed yes twice, and it's already going to close at yes again because of the tariff agreement. So
I didn't know you could dispute an outcome, but I've always wondered that.
There needs to be enough evidence. It's not like anyone can do it.
Okay.
I think for the Kamala and Trump presidential election last November, someone tried to dispute that Kamala lost, but it was already late in the night, which it was a pretty decisive victory for Trump. It didn't go through. So it's not like you can easily dispute something. There needs to be enough evidence, which for this, I can kind of see it because it's kind of messy and confusing. And the last talking point for this story is, will there be a U.S. recession in 2025? Maybe in May and April, we were seeing like a high probability of 65, 66. And now it's at 27. So hopefully it remains the case where we don't have a recession at all. But there's pretty strong indicators that if we're not already in a recession, that we will be in due time. Because I think you and I talked about it earlier, how if there is a stagnation in GDP, then we're pretty much in a recession. I don't know if we've seen that yet.
Stagflation too, which is
stagflation is the worst.
Just as dangerous.
Right.
Everything looks like it's going well. You know, Trump is navigating a lot of this pretty well. I think there's a looming target over all of this because the United States has issues just with so much debt. We've got a lot of world politics to deal with between China, Iran, Ukraine, Russia that could throw the economies of the world into disarray at any moment. But also, I think Trump, you know, for all the hate, is navigating a lot of this stuff fairly well, keeping the economies up. Almost every single time the market reacts, the market turns around, shrugs it off, and essentially has like one of its best trading days, a couple days after, and then just like this, like, it's good news on a no recession. Bettors are still a little bit cautious, but no highs doesn't mean no risk. It's just the macro fears are fading, trade routes are opening, sentiment is bullish for now. So
Right.
I would say, like, let's keep an eye on these bets. Smart money is still bracing for the economy to kind of drag sometime soon. And then
Right.
there's still a lot of people that are pushing money. And this institutional money is really what drives, like, big market shifts.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I was reading right now at the comments. This one guy said, 6 months left of the year, 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. It's sort of over yes holders. Unless you deem the next 6 months to be the bleakest in recent history, I would not be paying close to 30 cents here, more like 2 cents. So I don't know if these guys are just degenerates on the comments or some of them have actual education. So just take their advice as a grain of salt.
I guess that's very true. Is a recession is 2 quarters back-to-back declines, and right now we'll be heading into
That's a good
essentially
point.
the bull market. Like, this bet could be over here in a couple months, because if you head into the first quarter and things are looking good, like, there won't be a recession.
Right. We'll see what happens. I guess it's not a recession until it's claimed to be a recession. That's pretty much as far as the US recession. Let's now talk about RoboTaxi, because this is something that was actually pretty much talked about on Twitter, which on Elon's domain, I think it's to be expected. So RoboTaxi actually did a soft launch in the city of Austin, Texas. This is from Tesla's website. It's a beautiful website, in my opinion. RoboTaxi is coming. We're bringing the autonomous rides to you today, starting with the Model Y. Cybercab, our fully autonomous vehicle, will begin offering rides in your area in the future. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like the new Model Y looks a lot like the Cybercab, but the Cybercab is fully autonomous. There's not even a steering wheel in it. I think it's smart. You want to have something out there as soon as you can, and with the Model Y, it makes sense. And I think it's the most up-to-date car in their inventory. Kind of smart. This is from Twitter. Kind of gives you a demo on how the the RoboTaxi works. So you sit on the back, and there's a button in between the monitor that's in between the front seats, and you can just start it. It kind of works like Uber effectively. So this is the video. They just press on that, and it gives you kind of like this very slick UI of where you're going.
I think that
Seems-
person in the passenger seat's a safety driver too.
Yeah. So thanks for that, because it's not fully autonomous. Like, I guess Tesla still requires the owner, or at least a paid employee from Tesla, to kind of be like the one monitoring the situation.
Yeah, so they're fully autonomous. Nobody's in the driver's seat, but there is a safety driver there to intervene or answer questions if something happens.
Yep.
Same thing happened to Waymo. Like, this is more like, I wouldn't compare it so much to
really?
Uber, but more to Waymo. Waymo initially
Yeah.
had safety drivers when they launched in LA, and they rolled out to Austin, San Francisco. They always kind of start with safety drivers, but as the technology's gotten a lot better, you don't need them anymore. Waymo still has a lot of problems. These cyber taxis, or even call them robo-taxis, whatever the name is, they look pretty cool, but FSD has some bugs. We're seeing it happen, on the streets of Austin. There's roads that are just like mislabeled, lines that are a little blurry, stuff like that. But overall, it looks like a really cool experience, and we're getting closer and closer to it. And I love this meme. Like,
Yeah. You were talking about Waymo, and I had to just bring it up.
yeah.
Waymo is like a much better FSD of Tesla, but because it's so good, it's boring.
Yeah, but Waymo also uses LiDAR. They've got like multiple cameras all around it. They've like been building it. One of those cars is $200,000, and Tesla, I'm surprised it says a Model Y on it, because I believe all the pictures I've seen and videos are a Model 3. But they look so similar that sometimes it's really hard to tell them apart. But Tesla FSD is pretty good, and this is a slow rollout for Tesla. They did a very small area of downtown Austin. They only really let influencers kind of get access to it first. All those influencers are mostly saying positive-ish stuff. I think the real test of this is, how many accidents do they have per mile? Can they expand outside of these urban cores? Because like if you could get something that goes from Austin to San Antonio to Dallas to Houston, like that's really big. Yesterday
Dude.
they just announced that there was a full self-driving delivery. So the car went from the
Oh yeah.
factory to the person's house 30 minutes away. Like that's huge. And we're stepping towards self-driving faster and faster, and like a lot of the critics say Tesla's being, crazy, Waymo's just doing the same thing, and there's a lot of problems with it, but the only way to do it is to test it in the real world.
Yeah, I'm honestly kind of excited to see this new autonomous world that we're moving into. I think the right way to do AI is by automating the boring stuff. A lot of people don't like driving, and in fact, there's a lot of traffic accidents that happen because of reckless drivers. So this could help people in so many ways. I'm excited to see where this goes.
I also love its electric cars. I think, like if you visit anywhere in the world that's like fully electric, like Singapore, the downtown urban cores are very silent. You hear more nature than cars and horns and everything. So I'm looking forward to, you know, the progression to self-driving, the progression to electric, and I know like it's flipping and not electric's not going to be for everybody, but I think especially if you live in a city, like electric car probably is going to do just enough to get around and navigate the daily commutes.
I agree. It'll be really nice not having to drive. Texas is huge, and if I don't have to worry so much about driving from like the city that I live in, which is Dallas, all the way to like Austin or even San Antonio, that would be amazing. I don't want to worry so much about driving. If you look at RoboTaxi on Twitter, you can see a lot of people just spreading a lot of positive things about the experience. This is from Nicola Brussels. Been following RoboTaxi all over Austin. TBH, it's got boring. After a while, the excitement turns down and it felt like following just another car on the road. 99.99% of all pedestrians did not even notice it. That said, that's actually great news. Bullish for Tesla. Yeah, and I was going to say, like, Waymo got boring because it got really good. With Tesla, it's heading in that direction, and in my opinion, that's how it should be. It's exciting at first seeing that, a car is moving on by itself, but like its actual service is to help people get from point A to point B safely without having to worry about drivers. I think it's headed in the right direction. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, it's cool. Like technology is progressing faster and faster, and
it really is.
Like there's going to be problems. It's going to make dumb mistakes. I don't think it's putting anybody at huge dangers, but
right,
road accidents are dangerous in the United States. Texas, I think, has the leading number of road accidents in the country. If it can cut down on fatigue, drunk drivers, all of that, like it could do stuff like autonomous cars can cut down on traffic even because they can all communicate.
Yeah.
Like I think the progression of it's good. I know a lot of people are scared of the change, just like from buggy to cars to like the safety seat belts. Every time it's been a huge thing. Well, I want to see these bets. Like the people that bet that the RoboTaxi, the cyber taxi wouldn't launch in June totally lost that bet, and it was a huge
Oh
one.
yeah. So if you go on Polymarket and you look at RoboTaxi, you'll get 3 bets as of Saturday, June 28th. So the first one is, will Tesla launch a driverless RoboTaxi service before July? Which a lot of people are saying no. Only 5% chance it'll happen. Will Tesla launch a driverless RoboTaxi service before August? There's a 39% chance it will, so about 40. And
why is that one? Is it just because you have to be an influencer to like have access right now? Like, didn't
probably
they essentially launch it?
Dude, I'm conflicted because wait, if people can access it right now, then why is before July 5% that it will happen? But after hearing your thoughts, yeah, I only think a limited amount of people are getting access to it. So
yeah, it's like
it's not fully
Tesla influence, like the Mars dude. Like those people only got access. Like this is very gated, and gating access from like traditional media and all of that. I think it's a little like
it's a bit
on the
shady,
nose for Elon, but also if he launches something like wider mass adoption, I think that's going to be the important part. FSD is not 100% great, so I've experienced some phantom braking, and just issues that I've had to take over on the car. I think I would trust it for the most part, but like it needs to learn a little bit more. And the only way to do it, to what even Waymo acknowledged, is more miles on the road and more data. Like that's the only way to do it, and this is the way that Tesla is going to be able to do it. So like I'm not faulting them for it. I'm just like there's a long journey ahead still.
There is. So just to give you guys a little bit more context, like I said, I live in Dallas, and I've driven from Dallas all the way to South Texas, and I have a Tesla as well. The self-driving is really good if you're on the highway making very mundane, straight driving. Because if you're going from one big city to another big city in Texas, you're taking the highway and it's pretty much a straight path. That can get boring. Full self-driving there is very good. If there is not a lot of congested traffic, that's when, in my opinion, it's where it shines. If there's congested traffic, it can get a little bit finicky. But, you know, just drive safe out there. Full self-driving, I am excited to see where it goes.
Let's talk Bitcoin. You know, we've been talking about Bitcoin being more in right now. The reason is it's really Bitcoin season, and Bitcoin still has a lot of regulatory hurdles. I've experienced this. When you go buy a house, you weren't able to use Bitcoin or crypto as an asset for mortgages, so you had to use only your income. You couldn't use this, and if you wanted to use it, you'd have to sell it, let it season in the bank account for 3 to 6 months, whatever the rule is. But the new Federal Housing Authority or agency, I think it's Federal Housing Finance Agency, is issuing guidance on allowing for Bitcoin and crypto as an asset for a mortgage. It's a big deal. People could
really cool.
use other assets. Like you could have your brokerage account as an asset to go get a mortgage, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are that big regulatory body that essentially issues all mortgages.
So you're effectively buying property with Bitcoin is what this is kind of like creating the legislation for that?
Yeah, so like, well, it's not even just buying it, it's just using that money as like counting towards your assets. So like before, if you had like $100,000 in cash, that would be considered towards your mortgage on what you can afford and your income. And if you had a ton of Bitcoin, $1 million in Bitcoin, you weren't able to use that towards your mortgage application to show that you have assets. They just excluded it completely.
So making it more accessible to buy property with Bitcoin.
Yes.
Almost.
And just like this Bitcoin historian, this is huge. It's a valid asset for mortgage approval. So when it comes down to it is you need income and money to actually be able to get a mortgage. And I think this thread does a better usage of it. This asset, it's huge. It says like no longer is Bitcoin just like some speculative asset. It's kind of like gold. Like if you owned $1 million in gold and tried to buy a house, they would be like, oh, you have the assets. Not only can we take the house, but we could take assets in a forfeiture in the end. So it's huge. Like the mortgage market is the largest consumer credit market on the earth. 13 trillion outstanding debt. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac back over 60% of it, and this is huge for Bitcoin. Like
this is a really good thread. Now that I read it one by one and hear you talk about it, this is actually really well put together.
Yeah, like I've had to do this. I had to sell Bitcoin to meet mortgage qualifications to have assets on hand. You have to have so much money after the mortgage goes through. You have to do all of that. And then also it would trigger capital gains. So like if you just have Bitcoin sitting somewhere, now you can actually use it to go get that mortgage qualification.
So they'll consider how much you have in Bitcoin instead of you having to sell for fiat currency to meet the requirement or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't have a home yet, but that's good to know.
Yeah, this is the part that, again, not everything's not perfect. Currently, only Bitcoin held in U.S. regulated exchanges qualify, not self-custody. So if you have it on there, you have to transfer it. But Bitcoin is being legitimized very fast. Like you could even have really Bitcoin-backed mortgage bonds, risk-adjusted rates for Bitcoin holders. Like imagine if you have $1 million in Bitcoin, you're going and buying a $500,000 home, and you don't have income. You could still use some of this as doing it. Credit scoring that counts for cold storage. Like there's so many things that could come of this in like the lending world if we do it. It's just pushing that Bitcoin is an asset class. It's not just a stock or security. It is digital gold. And this thread, and I'll link it in there, is really, really cool to read through, and it helps you provide all of that. I'll put it in the show notes too. Again, it's Trump administration moves to count crypto as a federal mortgage asset. It's going to help put it into the world of, hey, you have Bitcoin, you can buy a physical asset. If you have any sort of even future like crypto holdings, you could go buy a house. Like many people just have to sell it, buy the house, deal with it. If you have a non-traditional job too, like not a W-2, you're a freelancer, you do Uber, even if you do day trading, like a lot of that stuff is really hard to go get a mortgage. So having some of this into it is a really cool thing to help push it as an asset class, and then also just push it as an ability to like get more people to buy homes.
Dude, that's really exciting. I think my biggest fear for now has been, will Bitcoin become as restrictive? Maybe not like the way the money system works in India, but like here in the US, I would hate to see Bitcoin become even more hard to deal with just when it's barely becoming accessible. If it actually makes it so if you have Bitcoin, shit, will be more in your favor because of XYZ reason. Like, for instance, like the Bitcoin with the, what was it called? The FH?
Yeah, I think so. FHFA. Man, I'm never going to get that
FHFA.
one right.
Yeah, me neither. So with the FHFA, if you have Bitcoin like any other asset, then you're welcome to get your odds increased for getting qualified for you to get a home. That's amazing. That's how it should be. I think Bitcoin deserves to be recognized as an asset and not as something that you can buy cocaine with in the Silk Road back in 2013. You know, that's the
Exactly.
kind of reputation it deserves.
Yeah, and like there's platforms out there. It's Coinbase has Coinbase Custody. There's Swan, and I believe the other one's Anchorage. Like they actually do Bitcoin storage now with proof of reserves and documentation around it. TurboTax now has like a Bitcoin integration. It's not just techies anymore. So like if you go and put a lot of money into it, like you've got it. I don't think Bitcoin is getting harder. I think it's getting easier.
It is.
Overall, the implications are like financial flexibility for crypto holders, more recognition of it as a digital asset in a traditional economy, and then just like clearer regulatory frameworks. Like, you know, Kevin O'Leary says it all the time, we need to regulate crypto, and it's like, no, we don't need to regulate it. We need regulatory frameworks that support it as a real asset class. And,
Yep.
you know, just as a nuanced term, that doesn't perform as well as regulate Bitcoin on a 10-second clip.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because I don't know what his true intentions are, but I think Kevin, has become very close related and allied to crypto in recent years, even after FTX, just blew up with him, like not in a good way, but he's trying to save face. I think his intentions are good with crypto. So for him to say, hey, crypto needs regulation, I think he's really just trying to say what you and I have been saying here, where, yeah, Bitcoin deserves to be recognized by the US government and by regulations because there's so much you can do with it.
100%. And I think it's in the right way. And David Sachs, was talking about it as July, September is going to be crypto season because all of these bills will get through it, the Genius Act, the Clarities, and all of the accumulation of them. So the summer is peak summer right now. We're heading into July 4th. There's going to be a slowdown in Congress. I think crypto news will, over the next 2-3 weeks, will kind of be super slow. But we'll be covering it and keep talking about it.
Yeah, especially it's summer. A good mentor of mine told me, if you're trying to fundraise or you're trying to talk to investors or wealthy people in the summer, good luck. Everyone is in vacation. So with that said, we'll try to cover as much as we can based on what's active, what's available. As far as information goes, we'll try to cover it for you in every weekly basis. But yeah, just stay tuned for the next episode of Social Edge Report. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. Dislike it if you dislike it. Like it if you like it. And share with your friends.
Sounds good. We'll talk to everybody hopefully next week.
Yeah, we'll be seeing you guys. Be safe.